traded.
The quartering, Jeremy Hambley says, the whole thing falls apart at, quote, they thought Tim Pool could buy the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is a $1 billion valuation. The claim the Daily Wire thought Timcast has the assets is totally insane. I mean, Tim makes a lot of cash, but, dude, there was never any circumstance in which anyone ever asked me to buy the Daily Wire.
But I noticed that the calendar says 2025, and he was killed in 1963. And so my opinion about who killed JFK has about as much relevance as who killed William McKinley, or James Garfield, which is to say, not an enormous amount.
Hey guys, really quick. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of preview this video now by saying this. We're going to be talking about those files briefly. It's going to be roughly the first half of the video. However, I want to take the second half of the video to talk more about what exactly is going on with this said company, of which, by the way, Shapiro is editor emeritus, and of course, Jeremy Boering stepping down. So make sure you guys stick around for the full bit. We got a lot to get to. So it looks like from what you guys just saw right there, we're going to be talking about both the Daily Wire and also talking about this, I guess you could say, a non-take from Ben Shapiro. But guys, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I think that this is actually vindicative, and they're both actually much, much more connected than you think. Not as in connected as in this right here is the Daily Wire's official thoughts on the JFK file release, of course, last week. But also this very, very strange bit of information that suddenly went viral from another content creator, another person out there named Ian Carroll, who I've talked about a few times on this channel, not much. And yeah, let's just go ahead and say that a lot of this doesn't really truly make any sense, or at least it is not on the surface. However, when you actually dig into it, it does begin to make a little bit of sense. So make sure you guys stick around for the full bit. But first, once again, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Also, something else too. Subscribing is the best way to support this channel for free. Make sure the notification bell are on. I would really appreciate if you guys did so. Let's go ahead and try to get those numbers up. Let's go ahead and try to get 2,000 subscribers. And also something else too, guys. Please hit the like button so that way the video will take off in the algorithm. It stands a better chance of getting out to other people. And let us go ahead and dig into this. But there is one more thing very, very quickly. There's going to be a couple of updates at the very end of the video, so make sure you guys stick around. The other day, this bit right here from Ben Shapiro went viral as far as his response to the JFK files being released.
Theorizing that's become incredibly popular on the right these days. It was popular on the left, and now it's become increasingly popular on the right. The kind of, let's just ask questions. We'll ask, who really killed JFK? Wink, wink, nod, nod. And then you're like, well, do you have any evidence of the thing that you are presupposing? Well, no, I'm not making any accusations. I just know I don't believe the story that I'm being told. I know not to trust the authorities. You're like, well, that's fine, but do you have like any evidence? Like evidence, not just supposition. I said, well, you're part of it, aren't you? You're part of it. The reason that you're so defensive about all this is, I don't care who killed JFK. I mean, I do, because it's really interesting. But I noticed that the calendar says 2025, and he was killed in 1963. And so my opinion about who killed JFK has about as much relevance as who killed William McKinley, or James Garfield, which is to say, not an enormous amount.
Shapiro earlier in his segment, and we'll go through it very, very quickly, not fully or thoroughly, but we'll definitely be refuting some of the claims. He basically gave his thoughts on it and basically came up with the whole notion of, spoiler alert, it was Lee Harvey Oswald the whole time. And my response to that would be, this is pretty much the same exact take you had when it came to the Leaving Neverland situation. The Leaving Neverland documentary, the film, the docudrama that they had released on HBO back in 2019. You know, the one where they basically asserted that Michael Jackson did in fact abuse Wade Robson and James Safechuck. Even though that film came out years after Michael Jackson had already died, and yet therefore he was not exactly able to defend himself. By the way, I want to go ahead and say this really quick before we go any further. On the topic of Michael Jackson, I was very, very much in the same camp that Shapiro and many others are in when it comes to him, and of course him being, let's just say, a fondler of young children. But over time, I was presented with a lot more evidence, and my views have shifted. They've shifted a great deal. I think that what really did it in my case was the 3 videos that Razorfist did on said topic. Either way, though, I'm still doing my research on that, but I'm not willing to say either or, but I'm leaning more into the camp of I think that may have been exactly what Corey Feldman called an absolute outright witch hunt. However, I don't want to go too far off into the deep end because we're talking about the JFK files. Shapiro has always held the view that Oswald did the shooting. Now, many others out there, like myself, for example, do not agree with this because there's just way too much daggone evidence to suggest that Oswald did it. The fact that it was a Mannlicher Carcano rifle, very, very bad shoulder weapon. The scope, we would find out later on, was defective. The best piece on this particular topic, in my opinion, is Jim Marr's Crossfire, or at least it's a good reference point to get you started. Jim Garrison's On the Trail of the Assassins is good too. However, the problem with that is that for the most part, a lot of that got tossed out of court or got made fun of. And of course, you may know this bit as the film JFK. The extended cut is the one I would watch. And of course, if you guys have ever seen the film, it stars Kevin Costner, stars John Candy's got a small role in it. Joe Pesci is in it. You got basically an all-star cast, Donald Sutherland, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very, very good movie. However, the film, for the most part, is not really and truly so much about the Kennedy assassination, but it's really more about the Garrison investigation into the Kennedy assassination. Do not get the two confused because people oftentimes do so. Still, though, with the files being released, apparently like over 80,000 pieces of information, I just want to go ahead and say this right now. Of the information that was released, which I will link articles in the description box, as well as this video right here from the usual suspects, because they went through it very, very quickly. Tom and the guys at the PBD podcast went through it. I will say this right here. Most of the information that was released about exiled Cubans and all the other stuff going on with the CIA, Allen Dulles, a lot of this is stuff that many people had already looked into and found to be adequate evidence that could have been used in said situation. The problem is that you got people like Ben Shapiro out there who love to just tote the mainstream narrative that Oswald did in fact do the shooting when all the evidence in the world seems to contradict this. Or, as you guys will see over the next couple of minutes, he himself, of course, still holds to.
Or so pages of the JFK files were, in fact, released. It was all put together in something like 1,123 PDF documents. So people are combing through these in search of the detail, the smoking gun that shows that it was the Cubans or the Russians or the CIA or the Israelis or something. I'm just going to break it to you right now. It was Lee Harvey Oswald. Spoiler alert, it was Lee Harvey Oswald. It was always Lee Harvey Oswald. The most credible theory about Lee Harvey Oswald is that he was some sort of Soviet agent, considering that he literally went to the Soviet Union and then he came back from the Soviet Union and he was at the Cuban embassy. Other than that, not much is my expectation. There are going to be some pages here of people who showed up to law enforcement and then made statements about things that they thought had happened, people that they knew, which does not constitute any real sort of evidence. There's tons of documentation on this. Again, 99% of all JFK files had already been released. You're talking about literally millions of pages of documents that have been released before.
That was only about 1 minute and 6 seconds, and I'll link the full bit in the description box. But this right here is one of the main problems that people has with Shapiro. He's great on most issues, but of course, also to go on top of that, we also know that his priorities are not really and truly America. By the way, there's something else too that I want to kind of preview to you guys before we get to the next segment of this video. And that is the fact that if you notice recently with Shapiro, he's been a little bit more pro-MAGA in his overall messaging. Don't worry, we will get to that here soon. But the thing is this right here, all evidence in this case seems to get contradicted when you actually look at the Zapruder film and actually look at the shooting. The thing that really kills me, and of course I'm not going to show the video or anything because I will get removed from YouTube, but I will link some stuff in the description box for you guys to watch. And by the way, there are people out there who assert that maybe the driver actually did it, but that right there does not stand up to scrutiny because if you look at the final shot, Kennedy's body goes back and to the left. That right there would strongly denote that he was obviously hit in the frontal portion of the skull. And if you watch the Zapruder film, you will see that, well, it probably came from the frontal portion of the skull. Maybe more frontal right portion, not directly in the front. And, of course, also something else, too, to consider is the fact that what I mentioned earlier, that the Mannlicher Carcano weapon was a pretty bad shoulder weapon, and to go on top of that, the scope was defective. Something else, too, about the schoolbook depository, there was a tree in the way. Now, guys, I'm not going to go into the CIA, and I'm not going to go into the FBI or the Russians or all that stuff there, but what I will say is this right here. There is a security footage of Oswald going to the embassy in Mexico. It does not match the description of Lee Harvey Oswald, not one daggone bit. And of course, there's also, and I got to kick it back to Shapiro for a second, the conspiracy involving
the Jews.
And, of course, Candace Owens and all these people, including Ian Carroll, who we're going to talk about here in a second, or mention here in a second, who basically assert that a certain nation had him done. I'm here to tell you guys right now that I highly doubt that a nation had the President of the United States whacked, especially a nation that we were courting at that time, even though we know that Kennedy had issues. They love to cite this Wikipedia article, yet these are also the same people who love to also cite that you shouldn't go to Wikipedia for your information. It's kind of crazy how it is that people will use certain things when it asserts their actual narrative. If you want to look at one person who may have been, I don't know,
the Jew,
then maybe you would have a case. But I will say this right here. The guy who ultimately shot Lee Harvey Oswald in the Dallas Police Department, police station, was Jack Rubenstein was his real name, Jack Ruby. However, Jack Ruby's case was a case that nobody was able to actually look into, and apparently Ruby had more information than anybody on the situation, yet Ruby himself was left in a jail cell to rot and eventually die. The point of the whole matter is this right here. When you actually look at the situation, there's definitely a lot more than meets the eye, and while people are looking at Shapiro and they're saying that, wow, dude, why are you suddenly saying that you really and truly don't care? It's the reason for that is because there's not really a whole lot that he can refute because, quite frankly, it's pretty daggone big, and it's really quite revealing about Shapiro, which is at the end of the day, Ben Shapiro will always carry the mainstream narrative rather than actually asking questions. This is one of the areas where me and Mark Dice wholly 100% absolutely agree. However, there are other issues where me and him do not agree with, but I do agree with him 100% on the Daily Wire itself, which leads me to the Daily Wire. So the other day, the Daily Wire CEO, Jeremy Boering, officially stepped down. He had a statement. He put it up there. I'll link it in the description box for you guys. I know it's old news, but still, though, I think it's relevant, especially as far as conservative media is concerned. People have been asking the question, who was the real MAGA person over there? Who was the just conservative that was a never-Trumper? And I'm here to tell you guys right now that Matt Walsh did not vote for Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, he was voting, in 2016, he was working at the Blaze. He did ultimately vote for the man in 2024, but he was very, very critical of quote-unquote MAGA. And then to go on top of that there, Ben Shapiro had always been a never-Trumper from the very start, who only begrudgingly supported him in 2020. Even though it was almost like pulling teeth for this man to actually give him credit on anything. To get him to give credit, that right there is what I meant to say. However, I believe based upon the tweets, based upon what has been said, I think that everybody was taking the line that Jeremy Boering was sending out there. And I think that the real reason why Jeremy Boering is resigning or did resign or step down from the CEO is because the company itself is obviously trying to change its image. And that image that they're trying to change to is a more MAGA-esque image. Now, let me say this. I know somebody's probably thinking, are you going to mention the failed movie projects, Bent Key, Lady Ballers, Out on the Prairie, stuff like that there? And I'll say this right here. There is a Tim Pool interview that he did on his show, Timcast IRL, where Jeremy Boering actually talked about the movies, and he said he did not care if they actually failed because his whole entire goal was to stick it to Hollywood. Jeremy Boering, by the way, was a Hollywood scriptwriter that got absolutely 100% totally rejected by Hollywood. Also, to go on top of that, Jeremy Boering also found a way to shut down a potential conservative brotherhood of actors in Hollywood that would have included such names as Gary Sinise and, of course, Mel Gibson. This stuff right here oftentimes does not get mentioned in the overall conversation. However, we always have to look at why it was that the man ultimately stepped down. So let us go ahead and get to this. Now, guys, you saw at the very, very beginning that I opened up with a splice segment of Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool. And you're probably wondering what the connection is, or is there an actual connection? And let us go ahead and look into that. Let's go ahead and look at the first part.
Jeremy Boring stepping down. Oh, no. There's so much more tea than that. My sources have been telling me about the story for months. Here's the inside scoop. I'd like to just jump ahead to a portion of Ian Carroll's video and press play for you guys. And here we go.
Into production and did not nearly recoup the costs. So then you remember when Tim Pool was kind of rearranging his business and all sorts of weird stuff was happening there? I don't even know if Tim knows this yet directly, but it sounds like the Daily Wire was trying to manipulate him into buying the Daily Wire and trying to present it as super profitable. The rumors I'm hearing is that Jeremy Boering thought Tim Pool would be dumb enough to fall for it, and he was the exact kind of guy
who would be dumb enough to fall for it. Tim has had Jeremy on, he's had Matt Walsh on, he's had Michael Knowles on, and they've never really and truly gotten him to pivot from any previous positions. Tim Pool was a former Bernie bro at one point in time, and he still holds a lot of those views. He's moderated himself and even gone to the right on certain issues like, say, guns, for example, the Second Amendment, defense, even to a certain extent when it comes to the topic of abortion. But the Daily Wire has not really had that much influence on him. And by the way, I got to say this right quick about Ian Carroll, and I don't view him as a serious person because it's almost like this guy here putting his meme about how it is that the JFK files had like 80-some odd thousand mentions of the KGB, but yet they had 2 mentions of Israel, and yet somehow or another here we are blaming Israel for Kennedy's assassination. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's almost like when the mob, Michael Franzese, Sammy Bulgravano, the 2 main ones, come out and say, the mafia was involved with the Kennedy assassination. But on what level? Did you get the parade route changed? Did you hire the shooters? Did you hire actual riflemen? Because I'm pretty sure exiled Cubans didn't actually do it. We've been training them, but trust me, they weren't good enough to take out a moving target in a very, very small spot like Dealey Plaza. You guys should actually go there. You'd be surprised exactly how small Dealey Plaza is. The point is this right here. You got all the proof and all the evidence in the world that somebody was definitely involved, according to the CIA, KGB, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yet somehow or another, we're going to go with the person who has 2 mentions. This right here, in my opinion, is small brain stuff. But like I said, though, there is definitely more to talk about here. So let me get back on track. Okay. That was only just a few seconds right there, but don't worry, we'll watch the rest of it in a second. But I highly doubt that they were going to get Tim Pool to buy the Daily Wire because as much money as Tim has, Tim does not have the money to purchase the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire, by the way, is not owned by Jeremy Boering. It's not even owned by, I'll put it this way here. Ben Shapiro is the editor emeritus, okay? But the guy who's really in charge of it was actually the vice president, Caleb Robinson. He's the guy who's actually been in charge. Also, to go on top of that, they're going in a much, much more MAGA direction, which would automatically denote that Ben Shapiro does not have the power that he thinks he has. Or maybe Ben Shapiro is once again just another chameleon like the rest of them out there. Of course, there is also this soda issue, which I may actually do a video on tomorrow. I don't know. It won't be a long video to go along with this one here, but for the moment in time being, let's just.
I heard that they allegedly offered him an all-stock deal, which would be worth fucking shit because their stock is fucking worthless because they're bankrupt, allegedly. So props to him for not taking that deal. That would have been a huge.
I must admit, my friends, I can't believe that the story has been leaked. That's right. I'm a billionaire. I have I'm actually an heir to a emerald mine in South Africa. And I am so wealthy that when the Daily Wire was in financial distress, they came to me and said, Tim, your show is about 20% as large as our company. No, I'm sorry, 7%. Perhaps you could buy us out. This is my favorite part of the conspiracy theory because people are hitting me up all day like, is this true? Did the Daily
you should
Wire?
have got a loan from China and then bought the Daily Wire.
What does an all-stock sale mean?
I don't have any idea.
We're going to give you all of the, okay, just real quick. If the Daily Wire was going to sell their company to me, that implies I am buying all of the stock in the company. So an all-stock sale would imply that they wanted stock in Timcast in exchange for all of the stock in Daily Wire, or they wanted to give me all of the stock. In all seriousness, what?
I didn't even know that. Let me tell you what the hell is really happening, okay? Jeremy Boering, his entire reasoning for BenKey was so that way they could dabble into multimedia, okay? And I think that when he went on Tim Pool's show a while back and said he was doing it to stick it to Hollywood, I don't think he really truly had an intention on actually changing culture. This is not like, say, Eric D. July, for example, coming up with a brand new comic book character, creating his own culture. Razor Fist, for example, has got the Ghost of the Badlands, actually trying to create culture. That's what they're actually trying to do. I don't think the Daily Wire was actually trying to do that. However, I do believe that the Daily Wire was trying to create a multimedia company, as in multi forms of media, and to go on top of that, multiple different avenues. It used to be that the Daily Wire, for the most part, was just an online network, and then eventually you had YouTube, and they've expanded a little bit further. The point is this right here. Jeremy Boring's true goal, true aim was film and movies. Of course, he wasn't very good at what he was doing. Where it is that Ben Shapiro, of course, his entire real aim is obviously what? Politics. Same thing with Michael Knowles. Same thing with Jordan Peterson. Same thing with Matt Walsh and Andrew Klavan. The thing is this right here, though. Caleb Robinson is the more MAGA type, and he's the one who's kind of running things. So, of course, they're actually moving more and more in that direction. And, of course, to go on top of that, they also now have reporters inside the White House itself now. They're actually being taken seriously as a media organization, at least from that side of the overall media spectrum. Jeremy Boering stepping down was because Jeremy Boering's use, quite frankly, just wasn't there anymore. By the way, of all the people at the Daily Wire, I would say that Jeremy Boering was probably the most useless. I know it sounds kind of weird to say most useless because useless practically means they were pretty much a zero. And of course, Shapiro is saying, I don't really truly care about the JFK files anymore because he already knows that his narrative or the narrative that he's been pushing has been false for a while, and he would just love to avoid it and not actually talk about it. I would love to see what happens when Ben Shapiro debates somebody on the topic of the Kennedy assassination and actually gets pinned down. It would actually be hilarious. But the thing is this right here. The Daily Wire no longer needed Jeremy Boering, so he was asked to step down, or he chose to step down on his own. He claims he's going a brand new venture, but at the same time, though, that right there is the real reason why it is that Jeremy Boering is gone. So anything that comes from the mouth of Ian Carroll right now is just subject to absolute absurd criticism. But let me give you guys some updates to close this video out. And of course, I want you guys to let me know what you think in the comment section. So what's going to happen is this here. We're going to go back to 2 videos on Monday, 1 video on Tuesday, unless maybe something comes up. Like, for example, this whole talk about big tech or big conservative accounts pushing very, very pro-soda stuff because of it's kind of complicated. I may make a video on it tomorrow and get it released. I'm not sure. But I did say that I want to kind of keep things back more towards sports and pop culture and have these media criticisms be to kind of a minimum. Still, though, what I would like to do is go back to 2-1-2, as in like 2 on Monday, 1 on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, 2 on Friday, 1 on Saturday. It was the method that I had before the surgery, and it was actually working out pretty well. But, of course, when the surgery happened, I also lost some time. So I actually had to post a little bit more to kind of get back into the algorithm. But we're going to go back to that there to kind of stabilize things. Obviously, it's going to be the same method as before. We're going to stick mostly with sports and pop culture media criticisms. There will be a media criticism from time to time that may seem a little bit political in nature, but we're going to try to keep those down to a minimum. I may schedule this for special days like Tuesday and Thursday. Not entirely sure, but I'm probably going to do that. But there are other reasons why that is the case, and this right here is what I want to kind of give you guys some updates on now. Okay, so here goes. As you guys know, John Claymore, Daily Channel, Crusty Old Vets, the Military History, Military Film Review Channel, and of course there's going to be a third channel, which I'll probably just call my real name, or I'll probably just name it my actual real name, where I'll be focusing on stories, film, even some theories, explanations, commentary, breaking stuff down. That would be the third channel. Of course, I talked about this earlier this year, and of course this is the Daily Channel. Now, the other channel that I wanted to create, which I considered turning this channel into the channel that I wanted to create, which I may still do, probably won't be around until 2026. It's going to be more along the lines of what you guys have seen before, stuff like some of the political stuff, but it's going to be more from the historical perspective. It's easier to do it that way, and I think I'm better at doing that rather than just doing reactions, because I've been looking at some of the old videos, and I'm like, wow, you could have done a lot better on that. God, that right there was nowhere near as informed. You can be more detailed, is basically what I'm saying. And I figured if I did that, lump mysteries, conspiracies, and even crime and stuff, and even maybe some pop culture content like certain people, like say for example P. Diddy, the Diddy files, what actually went on. I'm just kind of waiting until things kind of come out, that it would be more of a historical perspective channel looking at certain events is basically what it is. I haven't really gotten an idea of what we're doing, and of course it may even become this channel here sometime next year. But one of the biggest reasons why I'm doing it this way is because I kind of need to take more time to kind of go back, read, research, stuff like that there, so that way the content can be made to its fullest potential and its absolute best potential. Way I kind of think about it is that the Crusty Old Vet, which is going to be mostly about military films, history, stuff like that, it will kind of help prepare me, kind of help sharpen me up for the other videos. But of course, this channel right here is still the Daily Channel. Still, though, at the same time, though, just figured I wanted to give you guys that bit of information. Tell me what you guys think about the video, about the story. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say, and I'll see you guys later.